Congress has been active lately with some of these hearings. So just like our regular format, we're going to be going over some of the opposition. Why? Because Republicans, for the most part, have kind of absolved themselves of their responsibilities in terms of any level of oversight. But when it comes down to some of these hearings, I hate yes men. If it was a Democrat in the seat, I don't want to hear from Democrats. I want to hear from some of the Republicans so that we can actually hear some of the pushback. And that is exactly what I want to hear. Pushback. It's more fun. We're not going to go over the entire 2.5 hours. We're just going to choose a few snippets here and there. The full thing is readily available on YouTube. All you have to do is just type in Kirsty Noem. First thing that pops up. There you go.
Because when you're scared to death, your life is about to change, and you've got an attorney next door that you will not permit that family to consult with that attorney, you got an issue. Case number 2, 2-year-old American daughter, also deported to Honduras. They were also denied access to their lawyers. According to her lawyer, ICE prevented the mother from speaking to the lawyer or anyone else in the family. 2-year-old American citizen. Can't we slow it down and just take a moment before they're deported in 24 hours? The mom didn't want the daughter to stay in the United States. They may have had relatives in the United States, family. Even the own Trump-appointed federal judge overseeing this case has said that he had a strong suspicion that the government just deported a U.S. citizen with no meaningful due process. Madam Secretary, I think we're all in agreement here. Let's go after MS-13. Let's go after drug dealers. Let's go after Tren de Grúa. The bad folks who hurt my community as well as everybody else's community. But I fail to see where a child, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old children could be on your top of priorities for deportations. This is still...
This is where you know firsthand they're going off of what Tom Homan said, because the only reply that she could really come with is that the families wanted to stay together. Because Tom Homan, if you remember a while back...
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Yeah, because at the time, people were thinking that the logic was, my child is a U.S. citizen. Even if I'm not a U.S. citizen, my child is a U.S. citizen. And by law, they can't deport a U.S. citizen, so therefore, they would need someone to take care of the child because they want to put the child on the system. Therefore, I should be safe. I should be okay. But what the administration is doing is they're using the other form, which is, no, because you shouldn't be here. If you want to leave, leave. Now you have one of two options. You leave with your child or you leave without your child. Now where the problem comes in is, in this instance, they're not even giving you that option. They're just saying you leave and here, take your kid with you.
America, due process, the Fifth Amendment. Madam Secretary, I know ICE agents. I deal with them all the time. I've toured the southern border, blue uniforms, green uniforms, talking to them about what they need to do the job. More than happy to have that discussion with you, publicly or privately, but deporting U.S.-born children, ignoring their attorneys, take a deep breath. You've been here 20, 30 years. A lot of the times back home, when I ask the ICE agents, give them 30 days, you know what? Without fail, that person comes back or self-deports. We can do better. Madam Secretary, I'm going to ask you one last question in 9 seconds.
You must not know who you're talking to.
You're under oath. Have you fired, retired, dismissed any DSA agents that have not followed your policies?
What kind of agents, sir?
DHS, Homeland Security agents. Yes.
Specific law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am. Officers under your watch.
I haven't given any specific orders to any law enforcement officers under the Department of Homeland Security. So there are within the Department of Homeland Security 280,000 employees. 47,000 of them are Coast Guard individuals. So 230,000 individuals are employees, and we're very proud of the work that they do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing that it's Police Week. We have many agencies that have law enforcement officers in them that get up every single day to serve their communities and to make sure that our laws matter and that they're enforced appropriately and that no one is treated differently than someone else.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Guest from
Mr. Chairman,
Mississippi.
Mr.
Okay, so next up is Mr. Magaziner.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for 5 minutes.
Magaziner.
Madam Secretary, on April 24th, a woman in Louisiana was deported along with her 7-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son, both of whom were U.S. citizens. The 4-year-old son had stage 4 cancer. Now, you just stated under oath.
Hold on, let me just make one little statement. Mentioning that the kid actually has cancer, yes, it's meant to bring awareness to the situation because chances are they went in without knowing any of this knowledge. To some degree, it is also meant to tug at the heartstrings. Understand something. You're dealing with a party that, for the most part, I think I'm okay with saying this, they don't care. Stuff like this that builds sympathy, they don't care. They don't care if it was a 7-year-old. They don't care if there was a 4-year-old. They don't care if there was a 2-year-old, and that they're all American citizens. With the maneuvers that they've been making, they have made things very plainly and clear. They don't care about these rules, and they don't care about your situation. The point that they're looking at is either you're a criminal, you're illegal, you shouldn't be here. So regardless of your situation, go back home and take care of it there because you have no right to be in this country. So they're not looking at it from the lens of, oh, well, maybe we should be a little easier on this family because, you know, they have a 2-year-old and they're struggling and one of the kids have a disease. None of that matters to them. They're just going to turn that back around and say, you brought a child here with cancer, knowing full well that you were committing a crime.
That the mother consented to having her U.S. citizen children removed. But I have spoken with the attorney for that U.S. citizen child with stage 4 cancer. She has also made numerous statements to the press in which she stated unequivocally that at no time did the mother consent to her U.S. citizen children being removed. What evidence do you have to support your claim that she did consent?
Congressman, we followed the same policies and procedures
What
for
evidence
every
do you
individual,
have?
and we
What
have
evidence do you have?
We have
that
documentation
she?
that
What
that mother-
documentation do you have
get
that
that.
mother
Filibuster.
consented?
We'll get that to you,
You're
sir. I
gonna hear
don't
that
have it
answer
with
quite a
me
Please
lot.
do. I
today.
understand
That
it's
mother
hard to keep them all
consented
straight
to
because you've
take her
deported
child with
multiple
her.
U.S. citizen children, but I'm asking specifically about the 4-year-old with cancer who was deported on April 25th. For the record, that family was also not given access.
Yeah, what Kristi Noem just did right there, you're going to hear that answer quite a lot. That's a talking point that she has rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. So you're going to hear that quite a bit, I bet.
Access to legal counsel before they were deported, even though their lawyer was in the same building at the time. I'm holding in my hands here a document called ICE Directive 11064, Interests of Non-Citizen Parents and Legal Guardians of Minor Children.
Okay.
This is the policy for how ICE agents should handle situations like this. It states unequivocally that parents and legal guardians should have the ability to make alternative care arrangements for minor children prior to their arrest or detention, and that ICE must afford parents the opportunity to consult with legal counsel. So, did the ICE agents working on this case who deported this 4-year-old with cancer of their own volition fail to follow ICE policies, or were they directed to by your office or anyone else in DHS leadership?
Good question.
Sir, this mother chose to keep her child with her.
You have not produced any evidence
When
to
to
say so,
return
but I'm
back to
asking
her
again,
home
have you
country,
directed
and that is the
DHS
priority of President Trump is
officers
to keep
to
families
ignore
unified
this
together. It's
policy?
very different than the previous
right.
administration. The previous administration
On
separated
March
families
15th,
over and over
reclaiming
and
my
over
time,
again.
on March
This
15th,
is a
your
change.
department sent 3 airplanes to El Salvador. Those planes carried approximately 261 individuals who were imprisoned upon arrival. Did you personally review and approve the names of those 261 individuals before they were sent?
Sir, we have deported and sent home
Have
thousands
you,
and
have,
thousands
did you,
of individuals.
did you review the names of those
And
individuals?
we have
Did
individuals that have the
why won't you answer the
responsibility
question?
within the Department of
Are you
Homeland
aware
Security.
of whether those 261 individuals were given the opportunity to speak with a lawyer or appear before a judge before?
You already know where this is going to go, but you see the strategy that she's using. Basically, just eat up his time. As long as you just keep on talking and talking and talking and never really get a point across. And even when he's talking, she just continues, and that's the whole point. Eat his time away. He only has a select amount of time anyway.
Before they were put on those planes, yes or no?
Sir, every single individual followed the exact same process. that
They
we
were
follow
not
for everyone
all,
who's
they
in
were
this-
not all given
in
the
this country
opportunity to
illegally.
appear before a judge or speak with a
And was
lawyer. On
treated the
April
same.
7th, the Supreme Court ruled that detainees must have an opportunity to have a hearing before they are deported. Are you familiar with the April 7th Supreme Court ruling?
I am.
Can you assure us that in the future you will abide by that?
The wild part about this is the exact same ruling that the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 against what the Trump administration was doing. But Stephen Miller stood right there to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and everyone else's face and told them a blatant lie, and they just kind of went along with it.
There's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, He's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point.
This is in regards to Garcia.
He was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
Here's Kirsty, Pam, Stephen, JD, Marco. There's Trump right there. They already know the opposition argument that no one's actually advocating for terrorism, but what they are advocating for is due process. They're advocating for the administration to listen to what the court says that they're supposed to do or not do.
Supreme Court ruling to provide detainees with a hearing before they are
We're
deported.
following all judges' orders. Yes, sir.
I have a photograph here of André Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela. He fled Venezuela fearing gang violence because of his opposition to the Maduro dictatorship and his sexual orientation. He presented himself at a port of entry and requested asylum. His claim was found to be credible, and he was placed in detention to await a full hearing. But he never received a full hearing because you put him on one of those planes to El Salvador, where he still is today. Listen to me. He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally. He presented at a port of entry. He tried to do it the legal way. And to this date, the only evidence your department has presented to justify his imprisonment is that he had 2 tattoos, one that said mom and one that said dad. Do you have any other evidence to present for why this individual should be locked up in El Salvador?
Sir, every case is used the same protocols and the same processes and inputs.
Do you have any evidence other than the
law enforcement
tattoos that say
officers
mom
using
or
for
dad for why
cases?
this individual
So it's not
should be
just
locked
on
up?
tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
You have not
who they're
presented
spending
any
time
other
with,
evidence,
criminal
nor has your
activities.
department.
The cases
Reclaiming
go
my
exactly
time,
the
during
same
your
as it was
confirmation
with
hearing,
another
you said your focus would be on deporting immigrants who have been convicted of crimes and those who have received removal orders. But that is not what you have been doing. Instead, you have been deporting children with cancer, children who are U.S. citizens, a gay makeup artist who committed no crime and didn't even enter the country illegally. You have been sloppy. Your department has been sloppy. And instead of focusing on real criminals, you have allowed innocent children to be deported while you fly around the country playing dress up for the cameras instead of...
Hold on. Here's the thing I noticed. She really likes to play dress up.
What?
Here's Cowgirl Kirsty.
Yes, due process will be followed, and having facilities at Guantanamo Bay will be an asset to us, and the fact that we'll have the capacity to continue to do there what we've always done.
Here, this is Fireman Christy. This is Coast Guard Christy. This is her as a plumber, electrician, dentist, and then of course you already know the most recent. ICE agent.
Here at CCOT today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people. Here at CCOT today and visiting this facility.
Let's get back to it.
Children to be deported while you fly around the country playing dress up for the cameras. Instead of enforcing the laws, you have repeatedly broken them. You need to change course immediately before more innocent people are hurt on your watch.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now...
Okay, so now we have a little bit of a back and forth between Marjorie Taylor Greene and I think this guy on the right, Goldman.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. I ask unanimous consent to enter for the record. One of our colleagues had asked if there was evidence if the so-called Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was MS-13. According to the Attorney General of the United States, she posted that the evidence shows Kilmar Abrego Garcia has repeatedly been identified as a member of MS-13 by a Maryland County Police Gang unit, which I introduced for the record, a reliable confidential informant, ICE officers, an immigration judge agreed, and an appellate board agreed.
Without.
So you have, sorry, is that a court order?
Objection.
Well, I object.
No, she can put anything she wants in the record. She's not complying to your request, Mr. Goldman.
She asked for unanimous consent.
Okay, so you're objecting to her putting that into the record?
I am objecting subject to a clarification. Is that a court order that establishes that he's a member of MS-13?
An immigration judge agreed that he was MS-13.
For bail purposes.
An appellate board agreed.
Don't misrepresent.
Hold on.
A judge.
Everybody pause. We're going to let one person talk at a time. You ask a question. Answer the question, please.
According to the Attorney General of the United States, she informed the country that an immigration judge agreed that your Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is MS-13. An appellate board agreed. ICE officers
are misstating
agreed.
what the
reliable
Mr. Goldman,
informant.
the clock is not yours right now. She has the floor. Please continue answering the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A Maryland County
She's not answering the question, sir.
No, she's going to answer the question, and then you can object to her answer.
Make sure that she answers the question?
Finish answer. You just said, please finish your answer.
A Maryland County Police Gang unit agreed that he's MS-13. A reliable confidential informant agreed that he's MS-13. ICE officers agreed that he's MS-13. An immigration judge agreed that he's MS-13. An appellate board agreed that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, your Maryland man, is MS-13.
Okay.
I object.
Have the floor. What do you want to say?
I object because she is misstating the record and the facts. That is not accurate, and therefore I object to that being introduced. There is no.
Mr.
Sir, can
Chairman?
I explain? You let her go on.
Go ahead.
There is no final court order establishing that he's a member. Maybe he is. So you should put all that evidence before a judge, and if he is
There you
MS-13, he should be deported. That's what we're talking about, but you're misstating what all of that evidence is.
No, I think I'm going to make a point here. You basically just read what the Attorney General said, correct?
Yes, sir.
You didn't assert that this was a court order, did you? Did you assert that this was a court order?
I read the Attorney General of the United States.
And you have a right on our committee to submit for unanimous consent or a vote if we want to put it to a vote. This for the record, correct? Is that it?
Yes.
That is correct. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
she has a right.
Can I review what she is submitting?
No, she can submit something to this committee.
But it matters that she just said she represented exactly what the Attorney General said. She has a document there. I would like to see that document.
Let's make a copy
to
for
see if her
everybody,
representation-
and we'll vote on. I'm going to hold on just a second. We're going to hold. You're calling for the question? We're calling for the question. The clerk, we're going to need to set. Hold on just a second. Brief recess.
All right, so you already see where this is going. All right, next we have that exact same guy that was just doing the back and forth with Marjorie Taylor Greene, so Mr. Goldman. So here.
Go back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Goldman for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to go back to Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, Madam Secretary.
Oh, boy.
But my first question for you is a pretty simple one. It's basic civics. Which branch of government does the Constitution give the authority to interpret what the law is? The judiciary or the executive branch?
Sir, going forward, the interpretation of the law, you make the laws in this body. The judicial branch makes sure that they have integrity and they're applied properly to individuals.
So so I'm just going to take that as the judiciary branch. Now,
That's not what she said in practice. According to them in practice, the executive branch pretty much can do as they please.
Focus for a second on what the judiciary branch has said about this case. We know the Supreme Court has said 9-0 that notwithstanding your statements under oath here today, that Mr. Kilmar Abregu Garcia was afforded due process, he was in fact not afforded due process, because then if he were, you would have seen the withholding order that did not permit him to be deported to El Salvador. Now you allege, and I guess the Attorney General alleges, that he's a member of MS-13. That may very well be, that very well may be the case. And if he is, now that that is a foreign terrorist organization, certainly the immigration laws would allow him, and in fact require him, to be deported. I certainly would support that. But the problem that we have here is what you allege, what Ms. Green alleges, what the Attorney General alleges, is not the judiciary. You don't get to decide whether or not he is an MS-13 member. And you don't have to take my word for it, because Judge Wilkinson, a Fourth Circuit judge, very conservative, addressed this argument. He said, the government asserts that Abregu Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident in its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Will you commit?
Hold on, before you ask the whole, will you commit? Okay, so hold on. One of the reasons why I actually had to pause at that piece before he goes into further detail was because I read that piece by Judge Wilkinson, and it says more about the case than what he's stating actually. Here, so if you look right here, it says the government asserts that Abregu Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13, perhaps, but perhaps not. That's the part that he just read. But at the bottom, it continues with that the alien is no longer entitled to a withholding of removal. Moreover, the government has conceded that Abregu Garcia was wrongly or mistakenly deported. Why then should it not make what's wrong right? The judge continues by reaffirming the position of the Supreme Court that they're supposed to be the interpreters of the law by saying that the Supreme Court's decision remains, as always, our guidepost. That decision rightly requires the lower federal courts to give our due regard for the defense owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. That would allow sensitive diplomatic negotiations to be removed from public view. It would recognize as well that the facilitation of Abregu Garcia's return leaves the executive branch with options in the execution to which the courts, in accordance with the Supreme Court's decision, could extend a genuine deference. And then just hear this last part. The Supreme Court's decision does not, however, allow the government to essentially do nothing. It requires the government to facilitate Abregu Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not improperly been sent to El Salvador. So sorry, just had to pause it there because that piece that he read, it rung a bell.
To terminate the withholding of removal order. Will you commit right now to give Mr. Abregu Garcia that process where you can prove your allegation that he is a member of MS-13?
Congressman, that judge that you just quoted did not say he was not a member of MS-13. Who did say that he was a member of MS-13 was law enforcement officers that encountered this individual.
Yeah, he knows that. This is a Fourth Circuit judge. He knows all of what the evidence is, and he's saying if that evidence. So you're not going to commit to follow this order. You won't commit to follow this court order.
By the way, he identified
Madam Secretary,
himself.
I reclaim my time. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering.
By gang members of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abregu Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abregu Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately.
So
and he is not.
How can you say he's been treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately? Why is your opinion better and have more?
He just asked the right question. How do you know? You treat every case with that exact same question. How do you know? This is your case that you're making. You present evidence, then you make that case in regards to that evidence. In this case, though, they're stating that you haven't presented anything. You made a conclusion. It's not up to you to make the conclusion. You just bring forth your evidence in front of someone, the judge in this case, and then they make the determination, and then you execute on the basis of, this is basic law.
More authority than the Supreme Court.
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
That is them saying that. This
No,
is
no, no, no.
investigators and law
That is
enforcement
you
officers
making that
in the case they
determination.
built against him. If you don't
The
trust our law
court
enforcement
has
officers
considered all that.
and
The judge has
investigators,
considered all that,
then
Madam
who do you
Secretary.
trust if you
And
don't
if you would be
trust judges?
quiet, because I'm reclaiming my time, you are not following this court order. But let's focus on the court order, because this opinion also says that to facilitate, which the Supreme Court is requiring, is an active verb. It requires that steps be taken. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia to allow him to get due process?
Abrego Garcia is in his home country.
What
If he were to come
steps
back,
have
your
you
advocacy-
taken?
If your continued advocacy for him were to...
I'm not advocating for him.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
advocating for a court
The best of my
order,
knowledge
Madam
is he's the one
Secretary.
where he
For
wasn't
this
even
The
supposed
court
to be in
order
El
says
Salvador.
that you
Traffic
must take
human
steps
beings.
to follow the court order. You are here under oath. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia pursuant to this court order?
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents, to see you fight for a terrorist like this.
I hate this argument so much. I hate this argument so much because they play dumb. They actually play dumb. No one is advocating for terrorism. No one's advocating for supporting terrorism. The court gave an order. Will you follow the order that the court gave? There are steps. Will you follow the steps that are laid out in the country? If the answer is no, believe me, Kilmar is not the biggest issue that you have. If you have an administration that will willfully just go around the law and the steps that have been in place, you have a way bigger issue that needs to be handled. And that's what people are trying to get at the heart at. They just want to hear a confession that you don't care. The rules be damned. Checks and balances?
And not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for due process. And that's under the Constitution.
Gentleman's
and you
time
should
has
fight too for due
expired.
process.
The gentleman's time has expired.
How do
I
you
now
reclaim some?
recognize
Okay.
Ms. Green for 5 minutes questioning.
Okay, so we're going to end right there. We'll do RFK another time. Let me know what it is that you guys think. Whatever your thoughts are, leave them in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see you again on the next one. Be easy, y'all.